This is the last journal entry of Detective Marcus Webb, recovered from his apartment on February 14, 1983. The entry is incomplete. 7,462,918. That's where it stops. For 18 months, the city of Ashbrook told itself it was dealing with a conventional serial killer. Someone who could be profiled, someone who could be caught. The FBI sent their best behavioral analysts. They built timelines, they searched for patterns in victim selection, in geography, in methodology. But serial killers don't leave calculators at crime scenes. They don't whisper mathematics to their victims in the moments before death. And they certainly don't make 5 people count themselves to death over the course of a year and a half. This is Bureau Case File 114, the documentation of an entity that shouldn't exist, according to every principle of criminology and psychology. An entity that weaponized the most fundamental human capacity, the ability to count. This is the complete archive of the Arithmetic Killer, and the reason Detective Webb's final number matters more than you think. Ashbrook, Pennsylvania. Population 42,000. A Rust Belt town 20 miles west of Pittsburgh. The kind of place where the steel mill closed in '79 and never reopened. Where the Dairy Queen shut down for winter and people noticed. Where everyone knew everyone, which made what happened in October of 1982 so much worse. Sarah Drummond was a bookkeeper at Henderson Manufacturing, 34 years old, divorced, 2 kids who stayed with their father on weekends. Her co-workers described her as meticulous, the kind of person who balanced her checkbook to the penny every month, who kept a detailed grocery list organized by aisle number. On October 9, 1982, Sarah didn't show up for work. Her supervisor called her apartment 17 times. No answer. At 4:30 p.m., the landlord used his key.
911, what's your emergency?
I need police at Willow Court Apartments, Unit 212. There's a woman. She's been sitting at her kitchen table. I don't know how long.
Is she injured, sir?
She's dead. But her eyes are open.
The initial assessment was natural causes. Heart attack, possibly stroke. Sarah was found seated upright at her kitchen table. No signs of forced entry, no signs of struggle. But then the responding officer noticed the papers. 47 pages of continuous numbers, starting with 1 and continuing sequentially without error. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to 362,418. That's where Sarah's handwriting stopped. The coroner estimated she had been writing for approximately 14 hours straight. The cause of death was cerebral hemorrhage, a massive stroke. But the coroner noted something unusual in his report. Subject's eyes remained open post-mortem, pupils fully dilated. Expression suggests neither pain nor fear, but rather intense concentration. Right hand exhibits severe cramping, rigor mortis locked in writing position. The Ashbrook Police Department filed it as death by natural causes, exacerbated by unknown psychological stressor. Sarah's ex-husband claimed she'd been under stress, financial troubles, maybe a breakdown. The case was closed within a week. Then, November 3rd happened. James Chen, 41 years old, civil engineer for the county, married 16 years, 2 daughters in high school. His wife Ellen returned home from her book club at 9:45 p.m. to find every light in the house on.
911, what's your emergency?
My husband. Something's wrong with my husband.
What's happening, ma'am?
He won't stop. He won't stop counting.
Counting?
Out loud. He's been counting for hours. He won't look at me. He won't stop.
Police arrived at 10:03 p.m. They found James Chen standing in his home office. He'd been counting aloud for an estimated 6 hours. His voice was hoarse, bleeding from his throat. He didn't respond to his name, didn't respond to physical contact. The officers called for medical assistance. Paramedics attempted to sedate him. James continued counting through the injection. continued counting as they loaded him into the ambulance. His wife rode with him, begging him to stop. He didn't acknowledge her. His eyes were fixed on something the others couldn't see. James Chen counted for 11 more hours. At 8:17 a.m. on November 4th, he reached 478,912. His heart stopped. Massive cardiac arrest. He was 41 years old and had no prior history of heart disease. Detective Marcus Webb caught the case. 15 years on the force, decorated, thorough. He was the one who made the connection. 2 deaths, 2 people with no apparent connection, both involved obsessive counting. Both died from physiological failure during the act. Webb requested Sarah Drummond's case file be reopened. Not suicide, not mental breakdown. Something made them count. Something compelled them. The Ashbrook Police Department didn't want to hear it. The county sheriff's office dismissed Webb's theory. There was no evidence of foul play, no toxicology markers, no signs of coercion. Just 2 tragic, unexplained deaths. Webb continued investigating on his own time. He interviewed Sarah's co-workers, James's family. He was looking for an intersection, a shared location, a mutual acquaintance. Anything that could explain why 2 unconnected people in the same small town had died the same way within 25 days of each other. He had 6 weeks before it happened again. Patricia Voss, 52 years old, head librarian at Ashbrook Public Library for 23 years, widowed, lived alone in a small house near the elementary school, sang in the church choir, volunteered at the food bank every Thursday. On December 18, 1982, Patricia didn't open the library at 9 a.m. as scheduled. The assistant librarian waited until 9:30, then called Patricia's home. No answer. She drove to Patricia's house. The front door was unlocked.
911. What's your emergency?
She's at her desk. She's writing. She won't stop writing. There's blood coming from her nose. Please hurry.
Patricia Voss had been writing numbers for an estimated 9 hours. The assistant librarian watched her for 3 minutes before calling 911. Watched Patricia fill page after page with sequential numbers, never looking down, never stopping, blood streaming from both nostrils. Paramedics arrived at 9:47 a.m. Patricia was unresponsive to verbal commands. They attempted to remove the pen from her hand. She fought them. It took 3 people to restrain her. Even sedated, her right hand continued making writing motions in the air. She was admitted to Ashbrook General, placed under observation. The doctors had no diagnosis. Her brain scans showed unusual activity in the prefrontal cortex, patterns they had never seen before. Repetitive, rhythmic, like something was overriding her motor functions. Patricia Voss died at 2:33 p.m. Cause of death? Massive cerebral hemorrhage. She had counted to 591,873. Marcus Webb was at the hospital within 20 minutes. This time, he wasn't alone. Special Agent Diana Torres, FBI Behavioral Science Unit, Quantico. She had been monitoring unusual deaths in the tri-state area. 3 deaths with identical psychological and physiological markers had triggered a federal flag. Torres and Webb spent 2 days reviewing everything: victimology, timelines, autopsy reports. They built profiles. Sarah Drummond, detail-oriented, worked with numbers daily. James Chen, engineer, analytical mind. Patricia Voss, librarian, organized, categorical thinker. All victims share high-functioning pattern recognition abilities. All worked in fields requiring systematic thinking. But that was where the connections ended. Different ages, different neighborhoods, different social circles. Torres ran background checks. No shared employment history, no mutual friends, no common locations beyond living in the same small town. Then Torres noticed something: the locations. Sarah Drummond's apartment was on the east side. James Chen's house was on the south side. Patricia Voss's house was on the north side. but all three had been in the same location within 48 hours of their deaths: the Ashbrook post office. Torres obtained security footage. The post office had installed cameras in August after a string of mailbox thefts. The footage showed Sarah Drummond on October 7th, James Chen on November 1st, Patricia Voss on December 16th. All three had visited during business hours. All three had been at the counter for approximately 5 minutes. But the footage showed something else. In each visit, there was someone else in the building, a figure in a heavy coat, face obscured by a hood. The figure appeared to be watching, waiting, always positioned near the bulletin board by the entrance. Torres and Webb watched the footage 17 times. The figure never approached the victims, never made contact, just watched. And in each case, the figure left the post office within 1 minute of the victim leaving. Subject selects victims at post office. Method of transmission unknown. Time from contact to compulsion, 48 hours. Time from compulsion to death, 9 to 14 hours. Torres wanted to stake out the post office. Webb wanted to warn the public. They compromised. Plainclothes surveillance. No press, no panic. They couldn't explain the mechanism yet, couldn't explain how someone was making people count themselves to death. But they could watch and wait. They had 16 days before it happened again. Torres and 2 other agents rotated shifts, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., Monday through Saturday. Webb joined them when he could. They photographed everyone who entered, logged times, looked for patterns. For 13 days, nothing. Regular customers, postal workers, delivery trucks. Then, on January 29, 1983, at 2:47 p.m., the figure appeared. Agent Torres was on duty. She watched the figure enter and move to the bulletin board. The figure stood there for 6 minutes, didn't look at the notices, didn't move, just stood, waiting. At 2:53 p.m., a man approached the counter, mid-30s, business casual attire. He mailed a package, standard transaction, 3 minutes. As he turned to leave, he walked past the bulletin board. The figure turned its head, just slightly, tracking the man's movement. The customer didn't seem to notice. He left the post office. The figure waited exactly 45 seconds, then followed.
Torres to Webb. I have a visual on our subject. Repeat, visual on subject. Following a potential victim. White male, mid-30s, gray jacket. Request backup.
Torres followed at a safe distance. The figure maintained 20 feet behind the target, never closing, never losing sight. The man walked 3 blocks, entered an office building. The figure stopped outside, waited. 5 minutes, then walked away. Torres entered the building. The man worked at Ashbrook Accounting Services. Name, David Milhouse, 36 years old, married, 2 kids. Torres had 48 hours. They placed David Milhouse under 24-hour protective surveillance, unmarked cars, rotating agents. Torres explained nothing to Milhouse, couldn't explain it. They were operating on a theory that sounded insane when spoken aloud, that someone could compel people to count themselves to death just by proximity. January 31st, 48 hours after contact. David Milhouse woke up at 6:30 a.m. His wife made breakfast. He kissed his kids goodbye. Normal routine. The surveillance team reported nothing unusual. Milhouse arrived at work at 8:15 a.m. Torres was parked across the street. Webb was in the building lobby, pretending to wait for someone. They had no legal authority to detain Milhouse, no evidence of a crime. They could only watch. At 9:45 a.m., Milhouse's secretary called his wife.
Mrs. Milhouse, this is Janet from David's office. Is David feeling all right?
He was fine this morning. Why?
He's been counting, out loud, for the past hour. I thought maybe it was some kind of meditation exercise, but he won't respond when I talk to him.
Torres reached Milhouse's office in 90 seconds. Webb was right behind her. They found David Milhouse seated at his desk, eyes fixed forward, mouth moving, voice steady and mechanical. Torres positioned herself directly in his line of sight, called his name. No response. Webb checked his pulse, elevated but steady, pupils dilated, breathing regular. Milhouse continued counting. They called for medical transport immediately, but even as they loaded Milhouse into the ambulance, even as Torres accompanied him to the hospital, even as doctors tried every intervention they could think of, David Milhouse continued counting. The medical team tried sensory interruption, loud noises, bright lights, physical stimulation. Nothing worked. They administered sedatives. The counting slowed but didn't stop. They tried antipsychotics, benzodiazepines, experimental compounds. Milhouse's voice grew weaker. His body was shutting down. But the counting continued. Webb stood in the hallway. They'd done everything they could. Surveillance, protection, immediate intervention. And it didn't matter. Whatever had been done to David Milhouse at the post office on January 29th had already sealed his fate. At 6:23 p.m. on January 31st, David Milhouse reached 216,741. His heart stopped. Cardiac arrest. He was 36 years old. Torres and Webb sat in silence for 20 minutes. Then Torres spoke. "Whatever this is, it's not human." Webb didn't argue. The Ashbrook Police Department could no longer pretend this was coincidence. 4 deaths, identical methodology, clear pattern of selection. The mayor authorized a full task force, state police, FBI, every resource available. The post office was closed pending investigation. Every employee was interviewed, polygraphed, background checked. Nothing. The postal workers were clean. Long-term employees, no connections to the victims, no motive. The bulletin board was analyzed. Fingerprints, fibers, chemical residues, standard community notices, lost pets, yard sales, church suppers. Nothing unusual. Nothing that could explain the mechanism. Webb wasn't sleeping. He had moved his entire investigation into his apartment. Walls covered with crime scene photos, timelines, victim profiles. He was looking for what he'd missed, the detail that would make it make sense. Sarah Drummond, 362,418. James Chen, 478,912. Patricia Voss, 591,873. David Milhouse, 216,741. The numbers seemed random. Different magnitudes, no apparent pattern. But Webb kept looking. He added them, subtracted them, looked for prime factors, divisibility patterns. Nothing. At 3:17 a.m. on February 2nd, Webb noticed something. He grabbed his calculator. The time each victim spent counting. Sarah, 14 hours. James, 17 hours, including the ambulance. Patricia, approximately 9 hours. David, approximately 9 hours. Different durations. But what if it wasn't about duration? What if it was about rate? Webb divided each final number by the estimated hours spent counting. Sarah, 25,887 per hour. James, 28,177 per hour. Patricia, 65,753 per hour. David, 24,082 per hour. Still random, but then Webb remembered the coroner's notes. Sarah had been writing, Patricia had been writing, James and David had been counting aloud. Different methods, different speeds. Torres arrived at 6 a.m. Webb met her at the door. He looked like he hadn't slept in days, because he hadn't. It's not about the numbers, it's about the counting. Webb explained his theory. The victims weren't chosen randomly, they were chosen specifically for their ability to count, to sequence, to maintain pattern recognition under compulsion. Sarah, the bookkeeper, James, the engineer, Patricia, the librarian who cataloged thousands of books, David, the accountant. But why make them count? What was the purpose? The counting isn't the goal, it's the mechanism. Something is feeding on their ability to process sequential information. Torres stared at the board, at the photos, at the numbers. She was FBI, trained in behavioral analysis, evidence-based psychology. But standing in Webb's apartment at 6 a.m., looking at 4 impossible deaths, she couldn't argue with his logic. If you're right, then this thing is still hunting. They had to find the figure before it selected another victim. But they couldn't stake out every public space in Ashbrook, couldn't watch every location where someone might make contact. Then Webb understood. The post office wasn't random, it was optimal. High foot traffic, public space, people standing still long enough to be observed. The figure was evaluating them, testing them, looking for specific cognitive markers. It's hunting for pattern recognition. It can identify people who think systematically. Torres called FBI headquarters. She needed cognitive specialists, neurologists, anyone who could explain how something could identify and exploit specific brain functions. She was transferred 3 times. No one had answers. At 7:43 a.m., the radio crackled. "All units, we have a situation at Ashbrook Elementary School. Teacher reported acting strangely, counting at her desk. Students evacuated, requesting immediate response." Webb and Torres reached the school in 4 minutes. A 3rd-grade teacher, 31 years old, she had been at the post office 3 days earlier, mailed Valentine's cards for her students. They found her at her desk, writing numbers, faster than any of the previous victims. Her hand was moving so quickly the pen was tearing through the paper, blood from torn blisters. She had already reached 90,000. Webb grabbed her wrist, tried to stop the movement. She fought him with inhuman strength. Torres helped restrain her. It took both of them. The teacher's eyes never left the paper, never showed recognition, just counting, writing, bleeding. They transported her to the hospital, straight to intensive care. The medical team was ready this time. They had protocols, learned from previous failures. Heavy sedation, physical restraints, continuous monitoring. It made no difference. The teacher counted for 6 more hours, reached 412,973. Then her brain hemorrhaged. She died at 2:15 p.m. on February 2nd, 1983. 5 victims, 5 deaths, and they were no closer to stopping it. Torres looked at Webb. "We need to find this thing, and we need to stop it, whatever it takes." Webb nodded. "It'll return to the post office. It's hunting again." They organized full surveillance, 20 agents, perimeter coverage, infrared cameras, motion sensors. The entire task force was committed. They would watch, they would wait, and when the figure appeared, they would take it down. February 14th, Valentine's Day. The post office was crowded, people mailing cards, packages. The surveillance team logged 237 people entering and exiting between 8 a.m. and noon. At 2:47 p.m., the figure appeared. Every agent went on alert. Torres gave the signal. Wait, let it select, then intercept before it follows. They needed to understand the mechanism, needed to see how it made contact. The figure moved to its usual position, stood, waited. The post office was busy, dozens of people. The agents watched screens, tracked every movement, waited for the figure to focus on someone. But this time was different. The figure wasn't watching one person, it was watching everyone. Its head moved slowly, scanning. The agents realized something was wrong. This wasn't selection. This was something else.
Torres, it knows. It knows we're watching.
The figure moved toward the door, fast. Torres gave the order. "Take it, now." 6 agents moved in, surrounded the figure at the exit. Torres approached from the front. "Federal agents, don't move." The figure stopped, turned. Torres was 3 feet away. She reached for the hood, pulled it back. The coat was empty. No body, no structure, just fabric. But something had been wearing it. Something had been inside it. Torres dropped the coat, backed away. The forensics team analyzed the coat for 3 days. No DNA, no fibers, no trace evidence. The fabric was standard department store material, purchased from 6 different stores based on the labels, all cash transactions, no surveillance footage of the purchases. The post office never reopened. The building was demolished in 1984. A parking lot occupies the space now. No memorial, no marker, just asphalt and painted lines. Agent Torres filed her report on March 3, 1983. The case was classified, buried in federal archives. She transferred to white-collar crime 6 months later, refused to discuss the Ashbrook case for the rest of her career. She died in 2019. Her FBI personnel file contains a single notation from the Ashbrook investigation. Some patterns shouldn't be followed. Detective Marcus Webb took a leave of absence in March. 2 weeks. He told the department he needed rest. His captain approved it immediately. Webb had been obsessive, erratic, working 20-hour days. On March 7, 1983, Webb's landlord entered his apartment. Webb hadn't responded to calls in 3 days. The landlord found Webb at his desk, surrounded by notebooks. 47 notebooks, all filled with numbers. Webb had been counting, writing, for an unknown duration. The notebooks contained continuous, sequential numbers from 1 to 7,462,918. That's where it stopped. Marcus Webb died of cerebral hemorrhage on March 7, 1983. The coroner's report noted severe hand cramping, pupils fully dilated, expression of intense concentration. He was 38 years old. The Arithmetic Killer stopped after Webb's death. No more victims, no more sightings. Either it moved to another town, or it had completed whatever it came to do. The Bureau has monitored similar death patterns nationally for 40 years. Nothing matches the Ashbrook signature. But here's what keeps the Bureau's analysts working on this case. Webb's final number, 7,462,918. We added the final numbers of all 6 victims, Sarah, James, Patricia, David, the teacher, and Webb himself. The total is 7,462,918. Webb wasn't compelled to count like the others. He chose to count. He was adding them up, trying to understand the sum, trying to see if the total meant something. And somewhere in those final hours, as his hand moved across the page, as he approached the target number, Marcus Webb understood. Beneath the final number, Webb wrote 4 words, not in numerical sequence, not part of the count, 4 words in shaking handwriting. It was counting us. The implications of those 4 words remain classified. If the victims weren't the goal but the method, if their counting wasn't random compulsion but data collection, if something used 6 human beings as instruments to calculate a specific sum, then the question isn't why it stopped. The question is, what was it counting? This has been Bureau Case File 47. The investigation into the Ashbrook Arithmetic Killer remains open. The archives are open.